quickly touch upon the preconditions which we went through in the previous discussion in depth. So um, these preconditions need to be achieved by the sadhaka. Sadhaka means the practitioner or the aspirant. A spiritual aspirant engaged in disciplined practice, sadhana, who wants to achieve self-realization is a sadhaka. And these preconditions are very important to understand the process of Bhakti Yoga and the essence of Bhakti Yoga. So Viveka, discrimination between self and non-self, this provides the basis for the right decision making, right thought, and also reduces the positive and negative attachment. What is negative attachment? It's hate. And then you have Vairagya. Vairagya, we have seen both in our previous sessions. There is apara and para, the higher form and the lower form. And this paramita Vairagya helps in killing desire, killing ambition, stilling the mind, freeing oneself, mind purification, and finally, supreme detachment. And this in turn leads to sama, which is quietude of mind, dhamma, which is control over senses, and oparati, which is withdrawal from too much engagement in the external world. And from then, logically comes the samadhana, which is wherein the student spends more and more time on consciously living the higher life. And then comes the fourth, titiksha. Now, titiksha is actually indifference to pleasure and pain, illusion conquered, as the voice of silence says. And interestingly, on page 70, footnote, voice of silence also mentions that it is the fifth stage of Raja Yoga. So it's a pretty high stage, but this is something which is prescribed, which needs to be achieved at least to a certain degree. Then comes Shraddha. Shraddha is intense, firm faith in the teachings and your teacher, the Guru, without any doubt. In this case, our Guru is Bhagavad Gita and the teachings of the masters and the wise ones. Then comes the Mumukshutva. Mumukshutva is a person having intense, extreme desire for liberation. For him or her, nothing else matters in life. Nothing is important. So, complete focus on coming out of the cycle of birth and death. And for this, we need a driving force, which is virya. So, there's another paramita which works in parallel to this. And we also see going ahead that we will see going ahead how these 7 paramitas mentioned in the voice of silence are linked to the various parts of Bhagavad Gita. Now, Bhagavad Gita, each chapter is actually a yoga, a path, a kind of approach. So each chapter of Bhagavad Gita, each path, each yoga actually connects with the paramitas. Going ahead, we see that in chapter 12, shloka 13 and 14, Lord Krishna gives us the exact nature, the characteristics of a bhakta or a devotee. Who is actually a devotee? What's the definition? What's the attributes? It's mentioned, he who is free from malice towards all beings, friendly and compassionate, and free from the feelings of I and mine, balanced in joy and sorrow, equal-minded, forgiving by nature, ever contented, and mentally always united with me. Nay, who has subdued his mind, senses, and body, has a firm resolve, and has surrendered his mind and reason to me, that devotee of mine is dear to me. So we see that this is something which we need to achieve. So if you want to walk on the path of devotion, this is how a person needs to be. But motive and intention needs to be very clear. So before we proceed ahead, we need to be very clear about what is our motive and intention. And why do we want to, that is like, what is the purpose? Why do we want to walk on this path? Is it for our personal self? Are we looking for some gain? or for the whole of humanity. Because if the intention or the motive is tainted for any personal gain, then one will fail somewhere down the line. But this or this true feeling of being of benefit to the mankind or humanity will not come automatically. It will only arise when we have achieved the preconditions which we just discussed. So to achieving these preconditions to a certain degree, thinking and working towards becoming a true devotee will also rectify our motives and intentions, and then further calibrate us on the right path. Now, before that path is entered, the voice of silence says, "Thou must destroy the lunar body, cleanse thy mind, and make clean thy heart." Now, in this context, we can understand the following quote, as mentioned in Voice of Silence, that the lunar body, as you all know, or most of you know, is the astral body, wherein we need to work on the purifications of the skandhas in the astral level. And we need to separate ourselves from the lunar body. So we, the witness, the actual true us, needs to separate ourselves from the lunar body. Lunar body or the astral body is also composed of these skandhas, which are also connected with the desires. So we need to kill the desire or refine the desire. We need to depolarize our skandhas. We need to kill the ambitions, like the light on the path mentions. Next, we need to cleanse the mind body, which we have discussed in our previous sessions, which is also known as Chitta Shuddhi. And then we need to clean our heart, which means we are killing the sense of separateness and we are generating bodhicitta in us. That is a high level of compassion based on the realization of the oneness of all beings. And this all happens while the sadhaka or the aspirant is working towards walking on the path of bhakti. So it's a process. However, it is said that thou canst not travel on the path before thou hast become that path itself. Now, which is the path here? But even before we get there, we need to understand that in Bhagavad Gita, as we discussed, there are various techniques, there are various approaches, there are various yogas which provide us to lead us to final liberation or moksha. And each chapter focuses on one approach. And they are not isolated approaches, they are all interconnected. And the basis of them also, the foundation is associated with all the paramitas as mentioned in the Voice of Silence. However, in practical application, we will see in the due course of our study that all of these paths, because they are interrelated, they will eventually work together, and all the paramitas will also work together. And then what we would understand that each chapter of Bhagavad Gita is related to this one path. And we have to become that path, and we need to walk on this path. But the question is, how do we become the path, and what is the path? So here we see that it is said that the more and more we put in abhyasa, we put in more effort towards living the higher life, developing vairagya, killing desires, trying to become unselfish, trying to listen to the voice of higher self, realize the oneness and connectedness of all, we start forming the path. Now, in this diagram, we see that metaphorically speaking, we can understand that there is one manas. So this whole is actually one manas. Mind, which now this manas has a lower aspect, which we label it as for our comprehension as a lower mind. And lower mind is pulled by kama and becomes a kama manasik aspect. And then we have the higher aspect, which is guided by buddhi. Hence, we refer it to as buddhi manasik aspect. Now, the whole problem which Bhagavad Gita and such devotional books are trying to help us with and resolve is that the kama manasic mind aspect is having the ahamkara or the ego or I, and um, it is running in opposite worldly direction or the path of aggrandizement, sensual satisfactions, etc. While the higher aspect is waiting to guide but is not able to make its presence felt. And that's the problem which is happening. And on this path, we have the seven portals, which is mentioned in the Voice of Silence, the seven sounds, the seven initiations, the seven paramitas, as mentioned here on the right. And this path, when it progresses, it starts from dharana, goes to dhyana, and goes to samadhi. But we need, during this process, we need gradual purification of mind. So, generation of these paramitas, living in accordance with these virtues, constant devotion to the higher self, leads to gradual unfoldment of the path. In the Mundaka Upanishad, there is a very interesting story. I think some of you might have heard about it. The story is about the two birds, which are inseparable companions, which perch on the same tree. One eats the fruit, runs from here and there, keeps eating the fruit, while the other looks on the other bird without eating, completely calm. So the shloka 314 in Mundaka Upanishad says, two birds, inseparable companions, perch on the same tree. One eats the fruit, the other looks on. The first bird is our individual self, feeding on pleasures and pains of his deeds. The other is the universal, silently witnessing all. So the bird above is the higher self, but the bird below is the individual soul or the human soul, which experiences worldly pleasures, sufferings, and keeps oscillating between them. The higher bird is the mere witness, which is detached. The lower bird is actually running here and there and symbolizes the conditioned existence, which is caught in the samsara, in karma, in desires. While the witness consciousness, the higher bird, is unaffected, but always ready to guide the lower bird. Now, only when the lower bird starts looking at the upper bird, starts to hear the voice of the upper bird, and stops running here and there, stops eating this fruits of desire, then the path starts to form. This is very important. The path is latent. The path starts to form when the lower bird puts in effort to start hearing the voice of the upper bird. So, going back, this path, Antakarna, is potentially there, but it starts to form only when the lower mind starts detaching itself with desires, ambitions, and the ahamkara, and so on and so forth. Hence, all devotional books, everything says the same thing: kill desire, kill ambition, stay away from the sense pleasures, tarry not in the pleasure grounds of senses, uh, don't run after worldly pleasures, so on and so forth. Everything is temporary. Learn to discern the real from the false, and so on and so forth. So, the moment the individual soul starts thinking, contemplating, working on these lines, it starts forming this path, and then it becomes the path on which we travel. So then, before that path is entered, thou must destroy the lunar, cleanse thy mind, clean thy heart. And you cannot travel on the path until you become the path. So that's how the whole mechanism works. Now, in chapter 7, shloka 16, it is mentioned, Lord Krishna mentions that there are different types of devotees. So he says, "O best amongst the Bharatas, four kinds of pious people engage in my devotion: the distressed, the seekers of knowledge, the seekers of worldly possessions, and those who are situated in knowledge. So, four kinds of devotees exist. So, the distressed are those who turn to God in times of suffering. Maybe they are suffering, mental suffering is there, physical suffering is there, or disease is there, or some kind of suffering is there. Then the other category of devotees are the seekers of wealth who worship for all kinds of material gains or whatever they require. And then the third one is inquisitive people who are trying to understand, who are trying to seeking the truth, the knowledge, and out of curiosity only. But the fourth kind is those who worship or are the devotees who have true understanding and true devotion, and devotion without any desire or attachment. So, in this case, the devotee is actually performing their duty of bhakti yoga. Now, this is very important because, as we have discussed in our previous sections, whatever action we are doing as per karma yoga, we are not supposed to be attached to the action or to the results of the action. So, similarly, when we are performing our devotion or bhakti yoga, we are not supposed to be attached to the act of devotion and the results which are coming out of that devotion. Now, this is only possible if we have met the preconditions. If we have that viveka, if we have vairagya and titiksha and so on and so forth. So, hence you can see the importance of these. So, in order to understand this, we can further see that these types of devotions are actually based on gunas. And gunas we know are of three types. You have the sattvic, the rajasic, and the tamasic. Now, those who pray in distress are working on the rajasic nature, but those who seek wealth, personal gains, sometimes even people pray to defeat their enemies. Sometimes people pray for the fulfillment of their personal agenda. This is all tamasic nature. Those who are inquisitive and seeking knowledge, the third ones, they they come under the again the nature of sattvic. And then those who worship for true understanding and devotion and the higher form of devotion, the fourth one, the wise ones, the dhyanis, they come under the sattvic nature also. So among these, Lord Krishna says the jnanis, the wise ones, are the highest, for they worship him with unwavering love and knowledge, and this devotion they consider as their duty because they are not getting attached to the performance of devotion or the results which will come out of that devotion. So, in fact, they are coming from the path of karma yoga. They are already working on the path of karma yoga. And with that as its basis, they are performing the bhakti yoga. So, karma yoga is the foundation, and bhakti yoga is built on that. Now, then we see that, but another important point is all of these four categories are devotees, and irrespective of whether they are tamasic or rajasic or sattvic, their devotion, the act of devotion will have result. It is not that the act of devotion will not have result. So a person who is asking for wealth and personal whatever reasons, that is also generating a karma, and it will accordingly, the effects will work out. Now, another important thing is that in chapter 7, shloka 17, Lord Krishna says that amongst these, the ones we just discussed, the four categories, I consider them to be the highest who worship me with knowledge and are steadfastly and exclusively devoted to me. I am very dear to them and they are very dear to me. So it is to be noted that the Param Bhakta, Param means the ultimate, the highest. Bhakta is the devotee. So the ultimate highest devotee is who worships Lord Krishna or that one consciousness with knowledge. So the first duty for us is to understand, gain knowledge, and then we need to work with devotion as prescribed, which we just saw, and we need to also understand that we need to be in the fourth category, which is devotion without any attachment, with proper knowledge and understanding, with the highest goal of benefit of mankind and humanity, and so on and so forth. So now Bhagavad Gita also mentions that devotion can be of two types. One is with attribute or form, and other is without attribute or attributeless. So one is with form and other is formless. Now, both devotion with attribute or attributeless, form and formless, leads to emancipation. However, it is mentioned also in Bhagavad Gita that the path of formless is difficult, but yet it is faster. Faster in the sense, the number of lives it takes for one to reach the goal. What is our goal? Our goal is liberation, coming out of this cycle of suffering. So both the forms will lead the aspirant to final emancipation. Even though the formless one is more difficult, it is considered to be the higher form and more efficient and more faster. That being said, most of the devotees on this path cannot meditate on the formless because it's very difficult, and hence they take the path of meditation on the form. But the interesting part is that even if you take the path of the attribute approach or the form approach, eventually over lives with lot of consistent abhyasa and sincere practice, it will lead to formless. So immediately, if you were to meditate on the formless, many people will find it very difficult to meditate on the formless. But if you start meditation on the form or your devotion on the form, and slowly you will reach towards the formless. So ultimately, the devotion has to be formless, but it depends where we are on this path. So these are the various shlokas which refer to the description of a true devotee who worships the Lord with form. So Shloka 47, chapter 6 states, "He full of faith worships me with his inner self abiding in me." 7.1, "The mind intent on me, practicing yoga and taking refuge in me." 7.29.30, "They strive taking refuge in me of steadfast in mind." 8.7, "With mind and intellect fixed on me." 8.14, "He constantly remembers me with single-minded devotion." 9.14, "They firm in vows worship me with steadfast devotion." 9.22, "They worship me alone, thinking of no one else." 9.30, "Worship me with exclusive devotion." 10.9, "With their mind and with their mind and their life wholly absorbed in me, enlightening each other." 11.55, "He performs all actions for me. He is devoted to me. He depends on me." Now, all these can be also applied to formless, but these are specifically mentioned if a devotee starts their devotion with a form, because they are not able to conceptualize the formless in the initial stages. And then we see that the jnani, or the fourth category of devotee, which is the highest one, performs formless devotion with knowledge. So that knowledge is very important. So hence we need to understand the whole idea, and in-depth understanding should be there. And then if we may ask that what is the uh, what is the state of the jnani? How is the jnani? Tell me more about the this fourth category of devotee, which is the highest. So we see that if we try to understand this deeper, we will see that the sadhaka is a jnani, or the aspirant is a jnani only when he has reached a certain stage. And here you will also see the importance of those preconditions which we discussed. So only when the jnani has reached a certain stage, or the sadhaka rather has reached a certain stage, he or she becomes a jnani. That is as follows: that he realizes that he is not the body, he is none of the sheets, but he is the pure unchanging Atman. He has got a glimpse of the oneness and connected nature of all. He has realized to a great extent that there is only one consciousness. So let's also say to a great extent, because realizing this is difficult at initial stages, but he has got a glimpse. He has risen to a great extent from the delusion of separateness and sees all from the unbiased perspective. He takes the witness position, or at least tries to take the witness position. He has understood the illusionary nature of the world and how everything is temporary except the one truth, which is the basis of all. So he is not impacted by Maya. So at the same time, while living his or her life, he realizes that, or she realizes, he is not a doer. Then comes the path of Karma Yoga. So he has been working on the path of Karma Yoga, all this while developing the paramitas. And then he has achieved the paramita vairagya to a great extent by killing desires, ambitions, and so on and so forth, which we have seen. And he has purified his mind to a certain degree, which eventually will lead to purification of all his principles. So if you see, all these are work in progress. They are all happening continuously. It's not that you suddenly one fine day instantly become a jnani. You need to work towards it. And these are the things which are happening in a sadhaka or an aspirant for liberation, who once he or she achieve these characteristics or attributes becomes a jnani, and with the basis of knowledge, firm understanding, works on the path of bhakti yoga. Now the jnani who is working towards becoming a sthita prajna will get liberation in the physical body itself, and he or she becomes a jivan mukta. So the whole process is that this aspirant starts from a clean slate and works on creating the path by understanding and all this knowledge. Once the path is formed, walks on the path, generates the paramitas, works on creating the yoga of meditation, the Raja Yoga, by working on dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, works on purification of the mind, and develops those qualities which are mentioned uh, as per the Bhagavad Gita, um, and also starts working either on devotion with form or formless, and then gets from this aspirant state, yearns to become a jnani, and works on the path of karma yoga, and with that basis works on bhakti yoga, with the aim of becoming a sthita prajna to achieve jivan mukti, that is liberation in physical life, and he becomes a liberated soul, a jivan mukta. And then we need to see how does the jnani, the fourth category, actually perform devotion. So Bhagavad Gita says he does it with formless approach, which we saw. And these are the shlokas. So chapter 434 says, know that by prostration, by question, by service. 439, the man who is full of faith obtains that knowledge. That is without doubt, complete clarity. 5.8, the Sankhya Yogi who knows the truth thinks, I do not, I do nothing at all. I am not the doer, which we have already seen. Then 5.13, neither acting nor causing others to act. 5.24-26, attains the Brahma Nirvana. 6.25, having established the mind in the higher self. 8.11, the Supreme Being who is declared imperishable by those who know the Vedas. 8.13, uttering the word Om, the Brahma, and remembering me. 9.15, others worship me in my absolute formless aspect. So if you see, all these are connected with the formless, especially 8.13 and 9.15. Even 6.25, in fact, all of them. But it's a very difficult path because once you have devotion for that which is unthinkable, unspeakable, um, how would you have your devotion towards that? But that's the trick, because with all this preconditions, developing the paramitas and working towards the path of karma yoga and so on and so forth, you are working towards becoming a sthita prajna, and you are generating all these qualities in you that will help you to work on the formless path. Then on 12.15, it's mentioned that for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifest, the path of realization is full of tribulations, which we discussed. Worship on the unmanifest is exceedingly difficult for embodied beings. Even though it is exceedingly difficult, this is finally where we need to reach, either in this lifetime or in future lifetime. Then 10.10 says that to those whose minds are always united with me in loving devotion, I give the divine knowledge by which they can attain me. So you see, it's the Lord Krishna also provides a solution. He says that if you want to be a jnani, work on the formless path, you need to have knowledge. Now, in order to have knowledge, that knowledge also, if you devote your mind always to me, always think of me, always be united with me with loving devotion, and then I will give you that knowledge which will help you work on the formless path. 9.34 says, always think of me, be devoted to me, worship me, offer obeisance to me, having dedicated your mind and body to me, you will certainly come to me. So you see how your whole life should be structured towards that. All actions, all thoughts, all speech, everything is devoted to that. So your personality dissolves, becomes a cipher. You no longer exist as you, as that personality. You are completely immersed, or you get completely attuned to that. And then it becomes a journey over lifetimes. It cannot be achieved in one lifetime. But it is very important for us to know this roadmap and the correct approach so that we don't waste our time in a particular life. Now, the final important thing is, during this journey, there are various stages of the devotee, because this is a gradual process, and all the previous slides which we discussed, it is all evolving. It's work in progress. Everything is happening in pari passu simultaneously. It's a work in progress. Here is the map of the stages of devotion. So stage one, when the when here, if we have seen, when the lower mind, the kama manasic aspect, starts listening to the voice of the higher mind, that is, the lower bird starts listening or seeing the higher bird. After that, or during that, stage one, devotion to higher self is fired by desire to know the truth. What is the purpose of life? Who am I? From where did I come? Why is there suffering? Why is there pain? Why is there sorrow? What is karma? So on and so forth. I need to know the truth. Devotion to higher self fired by desire to know the truth. Second stage, soul hunger. deep study and contemplation of scriptures, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasa, that is listening, reflecting, meditation starts. But remember, very important thing, you cannot do listening, reflecting, and meditation unless purification of mind is done. Many people think that, okay, I can just listen to a talk, I can start reading a book and start meditating or contemplating on that. Yes, you can, but that will not help you. It is mentioned that first chitta shuddhi, purification of the mind needs to be done. Then, when you listen, then when you reflect and you meditate, you will get the complete results.